Hello everybody, my name is Martin, this is my take on this. Today we're talking about Airbnb, and in particular an Airbnb from Shelby Church, a well-known YouTuber based in California, and she actually has an Airbnb in Palm Springs. She has that Airbnb now for about 5 years, and so during that time she had her ups and downs, and in her video that I will link down below, she explains the pros and cons of an Airbnb in the Palm Springs area. So I'm going through a couple of points that she mentioned in the video. After that, we'll talk to our globally connected mystery man to see what the global impact or the larger impact of Airbnbs are these days. And at the end, I will give my take on this, what I think about this and what the future of Airbnbs are. All right, so let's get into this video. So, as said, Shelby Church has an Airbnb in the Palm Springs area, right? She has this Airbnb now for about 5 years. She actually thought that over time, like with inflation, that the nightly rent prices will go up. But actually, they went down. That's of course not what you want. So here in this picture, she actually shows her monthly income, which is, to be honest, pretty bad. You know, it's like around $1,000 or so. And keep in mind, her mortgage is over $3,000 a month. So that's not really any good, right? So it looks like that Airbnb in that areas are actually not really a viable option any longer. And as mentioned, the rent has not increased. So overall, rents in lodging are usually going up, let's say about 2% a year, whereas the overall inflation over the last few years has gone up like 4 or 5%. And so in this area, due to a huge influx of Airbnbs, there is a very, very large competition out there. Plus, a lot of hotels are building more and more new properties. There's more and more, Hilton True and Homewood Suites and so on available in pretty much every town in the United States. So it's the competition is just really ramping up. And of course, these large hotel chains, they have the possibility to lower prices, to really, push you out of the hospitality area, because they have the money to do so, whereas these small, let's say, Airbnb hosts, they don't. For them, it could be, a decision on, can I get by or not? Do I have to sell the property? So it is not as simple as it once was, like 3 years back or so, or during the pandemic. Airbnb was booming, but now it's kind of pretty much a hit and miss type of thing, right? So in this example, she actually shows that in the first year of her business, she actually lost about $13,000. In the next 2 or 3 years, she kind of made a little bit of money, but now she's again losing money on her Airbnb. So it's not an easy task when you think of the investment. So she actually invested $750,000 to buy the place, and I think another $200,000-300,000 to actually fix it up. So overall, she's in, you can say, about $1 million. So if she doesn't make any money with this, yeah, she's paying down the equity, so she has more equity in the property over time, and at some point, she might be able to sell it for profit. But there's also the myth that house prices always will go up. As things are going currently, we actually don't know that. So we'll just have to see how this actually is playing out. So yeah, overall, I would say, and she's saying that actually too in her video, is that Airbnb in the Palm Springs area does not make any sense any longer. Just regular houses converting to Airbnbs is, not what it used to be. There's no remote workers anymore that actually kind of want to stay there for a while or something like that. So overall, it's just not a viable option any longer. And also remember, that Americans are actually saving on travels. On average, 25% of Americans are traveling less this year than they used to do in the years before. Why? Well, because of inflation. Everything is ludicrously expensive, and you just have to get by, and you cannot just spend, $1,000 for a weekend just for lodging. That's just not possible. Most people can no longer do that. And so that's not an option any longer for most people. So that's also kind of a little bit, a huge blow for the Airbnb market in the Palm Springs area. So let's actually talk to our mystery man and see what he has to say. Hello, a quick question. What do you think about the state of Airbnbs in the California Palm Springs area?
Hello. The state of Airbnbs in the California Palm Springs area remains dynamic. Here are a few key points to consider. 1. High demand. Palm Springs is a popular destination for tourists due to its warm climate, outdoor activities, and cultural events. 2. Regulations. The area has strict regulations for short-term rentals, including licensing requirements and limits on rental days. Hosts must comply with these rules. Free. Competition. With many hosts in the area, standing out can be challenging. Offering unique amenities and experiences can help. 4. Seasonality. Travel patterns can be seasonal, and during cooler months and special events. Overall, while there are challenges, Palm Springs remains a popular destination, and Airbnbs can still be a viable option for hosts who adapt to the market.
What are the best seasons for Airbnbs in the Palm Springs area?
The best seasons for Airbnbs in the Palm Springs area typically align with periods of high tourist demand. 1. Fall, October to November. This season offers pleasant weather, attracting visitors looking to escape colder climates. 2. Winter, December to February. Palm Springs is a popular destination during the winter months, with many travelers seeking warmth and sunshine. 3. Spring, March to May. This is another peak season, with events like Coachella driving high demand for accommodations. During these seasons, hosts can generally expect higher occupancy rates and potentially higher rental income.
I'm more interested in this case if I have a house there that has a $3,100 mortgage a month, if Airbnb would still be a viable option.
If you have a house in Palm Springs with a $3,100 monthly mortgage, renting it out on Airbnb can still be a viable option, but there are several factors to consider. To cover your mortgage and other expenses, aim for a high occupancy rate, especially during peak seasons like fall, winter, and spring. 2. Nightly rate. Ensure your nightly rate is sufficient to cover your mortgage and other costs. Research similar listings in your area to find a suitable rate. 3. Expenses. Factor in additional costs like cleaning, maintenance, utilities, and Airbnb fees. 4. Regulations. Make sure you comply with local short-term rental regulations in Palm Springs. 5. Market trends. Stay updated on tourism trends and local events that could impact demand. If you can maintain a good occupancy rate and manage your expenses well, renting out your house on Airbnb can still be a viable option.
Well, thank you. I'm more interested in the 2025 to 2026 forecast. Is there a forecast for that area on how the Airbnb industry will do on, if people come to vacation?
In 2025, the Palm Springs Airbnb market is projected to generate an average annual revenue of around $92,474, with a median occupancy rate of 57% and an average daily rate of $486. The market is expected to keep growing, with a 3% annual increase in average daily rates, indicating continued demand for vacation rentals. Additionally, the resurgence of business and group travel is expected to boost the short-term rental market. However, challenges like visa delays and travel bans could affect international visitor numbers. Overall, the Palm Springs Airbnb market is expected to stay profitable, but staying updated and adapting to trends will be key to success.
Well, that is actually quite interesting compared to what Shelby Church was saying in her video. She actually had to go down in her nightly rate. She had usually on peak weekends $700 a night. It's now $600, and during the week she had to go down to like $300-400 a night for the house, which is interesting compared to what our globally connected mystery man has to say. So this is a rather interesting challenge right now when it comes to Airbnbs. And I will actually have my take on this right in a second. So there you have it. So it's actually interesting that Shelby Church is telling something different than what the AI has to say that is connected to all the global databases, or to many global databases, if you will. It's actually, as said, quite interesting. So my take on this is actually a little bit, let's say a little bit different. So first of all, I personally think that a regular house should not be able to be rented out on Airbnb. I know that, as Shelby Church says and as AI says, there are more and more restrictions these days when it comes to renting out a house. So that's actually a good thing. But in general, it should just not happen, to be honest. The reason is these houses have been built primarily for people to live and work there. And with the influx of Airbnbs, rent prices and house prices go up for no reason really. And the locals that used to live there or should live there, they have to move out because they can no longer afford it. So just think of it, the local grocery clerk, they have to maybe move out 20 miles somewhere in the middle of nowhere so they can actually still pay their rent, because the rent they used to pay in the apartment they had for the last 10 years, they can no longer afford that. And I actually was victim of that myself. In Las Vegas, where I used to live, there was actually an Airbnb right next to us. And, those people, they didn't care. They were out there at 5 in the morning, partying in the pool and stuff like that. It was really bad. So that's an area where people actually live, that actually go to work in the morning and so on. So that's just not right. An Airbnb, to be honest, I do like them. An Airbnb should be something more like on a special side, meaning like an A-frame somewhere on a lake, or a cabin in the woods, or a glamping site in the desert. That should be Airbnbs. Or, as it actually was meant to be, you have a spare bedroom or a spare couch or something like that, where somebody can, just stay for a night or two because they're just visiting the area. It should not be that they take away living space. But that's my personal view, and I know that a lot of governments around the world are actually restricting now Airbnbs because of exactly that reason. So the second thing is there's actually an oversupply. So a lot of people thought, just buying a house, making an Airbnb, that will be like, easy money. But it actually turns out at the end, it's actually not, because there's just too many Airbnbs now. And in the long run, you might not really make any money. There's a couple of YouTubers online that have Airbnbs or had Airbnbs for a long time. And usually only the special ones are the ones that actually make money. All the standard ones, just a regular house somewhere, they're not really making any money anymore. So there is a saturation in this market. And also keep in mind, the large hotel chains like Hilton and Marriott, they're building more and more, let's say, budget hotels. And so, you might then just say, well, I just stay there for a night or two. Why do I want to have an Airbnb if it's just, let's say, two people? I can just go in the hotel real quick and, go out, period. So it's kind of a little bit of a hit and miss, to be honest. But yeah, there's oversaturation in that market. Yeah, the next point is actually kind of going into that direction I just mentioned, whereas the large hotel chains can come in and then actually they can lower the price. So they can pretty much like push the Airbnb owners out of the business, because it's often like, a huge financial strain. If, like in this case of Shelby Church, you buy a house for $750,000, I think it's a 3-bedroom house, then you invest another $200,000 to get it fixed up. So you're close to $1 million. And you spend like over $3,000 a month on the mortgage. So that actually puts you under a lot of pressure to make sure that that house is always occupied. If you just have like a 50% occupancy rate, you're not going to make it. And so these large hotel chains, they can come in and build like more budget-friendly hotels and just take away the customers that you want to have in no time. And so it is getting harder and harder to actually make money on Airbnb. So the other point that Shelby was saying is that she was hoping that over time she can increase the nightly rent, by 10%. But you also have to think about, and that's what I always say, the same with the housing market, you have to think about that salaries are not going up that much. And everything is kind of tied to how much money we make. If we're not making that amount of money, there's no way we can actually say we're going up in price for Airbnbs or any other hotel, if you will. So that's just not possible. That's not possible. If you think of it, that would mean, let's say that now you pay $400 a night for this Airbnb, and then in 5-6 years you pay $700-800 a night. That's just not happening. We have to be realistic, and things kind of have to actually come down before they can go up again, because everything is just so expensive that it's not normal and it's not sustainable. So yeah, I think Airbnbs should be kind of primarily for unique locations, A-frames on a lake as said, or a cabin in the mountain, or a glamping site in the desert. That's my personal view on this. And then you actually will still make money out of it. I'm pretty positive about that, because people want to have unique experiences. Just staying in a house, it's like the same if I stay at home in a house. So there's no difference. The hotel has still kind of a little bit of a, let's say, a vacation feel to it, because it is a hotel. And yes, like when you see the advertisements for Airbnb, if you're a large group, an Airbnb is a nice thing because you can all stay together, and the kids might have their own room and so on. So there is pros and cons to it, but I think it should be actually limited to like these special locations and not just any house in the city and taking away living space. So yeah, so that's my take on this, and I'm sure there's a lot of people saying, no, it's my own house, I should be able to do whatever I want with it. There's some point for that, but in general you always have to think about the overall community and not just about your own personal gain. So that's important. Yeah, so that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.